Hi, boys and girls. Mrs. Baldwin here, and it's Literacy Week. Now, you know how much I love books, but I wanted to share with you one of my favorite childhood books. I used to sit on my dad's lap, and he had really short hair, and it was really fuzzy, like a little buzz cut, and I would sit in his lap, and I would run my finger over the fuzzy hair on the back of his neck, and he would read this story to me by Dr. Seuss. It has some of my favorite characters in it and some of my favorite rhymes. And I always think of my dad and the fuzzy hair and sitting in his lap. And I hope that you have some wonderful memories of reading with your mom or dad or teacher. And if you don't, you can make some by reading a book with someone that you love. If I Ran the Circus by Dr. Seuss. This book is for my dad, Big Ted of Springfield, the finest man I'll ever know. I feel that way about my dad, too. In all the whole town, the most wonderful spot is behind Sneelock's store in the big vacant lot. It's just the right spot for my wonderful plans, said young Morris McGurk. If I clean up these cans... Now, a fellow like me, said young Morris McGurk, could get rid of this junk with half an hour's work. I could yank up those weeds and chop down the dead tree and haul off those old cars. There's just 2 or 3. And then the whole place would be ready, you see. Pay attention to this guy. All ready to put up the tents for my circus. I think I will call it the Circus McGurkus. The Circus McGurkus, the world's greatest show on the face of the earth or wherever you go. The Circus McGurkus, the cream of the cream. The Circus McGurkus, the Circus Supreme. The Circus McGurkus, colossal, stupendous, astounding, fantastic, terrific, tremendous. I'll bring in my acrobats, jugglers, and clowns from 1,033 faraway towns to the place that you'll see 'em in, ladies and gents, right behind Sneelock's store, in the first of the great McGurk tents. And I don't suppose old Mr. Sneelock will mind when he suddenly finds a big circus behind. After all, Mr. Sneelock is one of my friends. He might even help out doing small odds and ends, such as selling balloons and the pink lemonade. I think 500 gallons will be about right, and then I'll be ready for opening night. There's Mr. Sneelock. What an opening night. What a night. What a sight. I'll hoist up the curtains, the crowds will crowd in, and my Circus McGurkus will promptly begin with a welcoming toot on my welcoming horn by my horn-tooting apes from the jungles of Jorn, where the very best horn-tooting apes are all born. 'Cause the very fresh air there is fine for their lungs, and some of these fellows have 2 or 3 tongues. This way, step right in. This way, ladies and gents, my sideshow begins here in the first of my tents. When you see what goes on, you'll say no other circus is half the great circus. The Circus McGurkus is. Here on stage 1, from the ocean of Ulf, is a sight most amazing. A walrus named Rolf, who can stand on 1 whisker, this wonderful Rolf, on top of 5 balls, 2 for tennis, 3 golf. It's a marvelous trick, if I do say so myself. See what he did there? Oh, and on stage number 2, here is something quite new. From a country called Thrum comes the drum-tummied Snum, who can drum any tune that you might care to hum. Doesn't hurt him a bit, 'cause his drum tummy's numb. I love him. And now you'll meet the Foon, the remarkable Foon, who eats sizzling hot pebbles that fall off the moon. And the reason he likes them red hot, it appears, is he greatly enjoys blowing smoke from his ears. Of course, pebbles like this are quite hard to collect, but Sneelock will manage somehow, I expect. After all, Mr. Sneelock is one of my friends, and I'm sure he'll help out, doing small odds and ends. And on stage number 4, see the wily Waloo, who can throw his long tail as a sort of a lasso. With a flip of the hip and a tail of this kind, he can capture who is ever standing behind. He can capture old Sneelock. I'm sure he won't mind. And here is the hoodwink, who winks in his wink hood. A hoodwink without a good... I have to do this one again because it's quite a tongue twister. And now here is a hoodwink who winks in his wink hood. Without a good wink hood, a hoodwink can't wink good. And folks, let me tell you, there's only one circus with wink-hooded hoodwinks. The Circus McGurkus. And the show of all shows. There's no other showman who shows you a show with a blindfolded bowman. The blindfolded bowman from Brigger Barut, the world's sharpest sharpshooter. Look at him shoot. Through the holes in 4 donuts, 2 hairs on a worm, and the knees of 3 birds, without making them squirm. And then, on through a crabapple up on the head of Sneelock, who likes to help out, as I've said. And now, come to the spot where the spotlight is hot, and you'll see in the spotlight a juggling jot, who can juggle some stuff you might think he cannot, such as 22 question marks, which is a lot, also 44 commas, and also 1 dot. That's the kind of Circus McGurkus I've got. I used to count them with my dad, and I have to tell you, the dot is right there. That is a lot. But that's just my sideshow, a start, a beginning. This way to the big tent, you'll find your heads spinning. Why, ladies and gentlemen, youngsters and oldsters, your heads will quite likely spin right off your shoulders. So hurry, step lively, quick, ladies and gents, and get into your seats in my tent of all tents. My parade of parades is about to commence. You'll see Drum Mazer Sneelock fling-flang his baton, and my organ McGorgon McGurkus come on, with its hot steaming pipes of gold brass-plated tin, snorting all sorts of snorts in a bumbling din that is super, stupendous, stupendous, stu-roarous. And when I play Dixie, please join in the chorus. Then a fluff-muffled tuffle will ride on a huffle, and next in the line a fine flummox will shuffle. The flummox will carry a lurch in a pail, and a fibble will carry the flummox's tail, while on top of the flummox 3 harp-twanging snarp will twang mighty twangs on their 3-snarper harp, while a blowster blows bloops on a 3-nozzled blazer, a nolster blows floops on a 1-nozzled nozer, and then comes a lion who's partly a trout, and more stuff for 45 minutes about. You can see why I like this, right? And then, behind them, while everyone stares, come my to and fro marchers who march in 5 layers. The froes march on toes, the toes march on froes. Don't know how they do it, but that's how it goes. And now comes an act of enormous enormance. No former performers performed this performance. This stunt is too grippingly, slippingly frightening. Down from the top of my tent like greased lightning, through pots full of lots of big sticklebrush trees, slides a man. What a man! On his roller skate skis. He'll steer without fear, and you'll know at a glance that it's Sneelock, the man who takes chance after chance. And he won't even rip a small hole in his pants. And now here, in this cage, is a beast most ferocious, who's known far and wide as the spotted atrocious, who growls, howls, and yowls the most blood-curdling sounds, and each tooth in his mouth weighs at least 60 pounds. And he chews up and eats with the greatest of ease things like carpets and sidewalks and people with ease. But the great Colonel Sneelock is just the right kind of a man who can tame him. I'm sure he won't mind. And then I'll let Sneelock off for a few minutes' rest, while high overhead your heads you'll see the best of the world's finest fancying, breezy trapezing, my Zuma Zoop troop from West Upper Bendeezing, who never quite know when they zoop and they zoom, whether which will catch what one, or who will catch whom, or if who will catch which by the what and just where, or just when and just how, in which part of the air. Hey, what a circus. My circus McGurkus. My workers love work. They say, work us, please work us. We'll work and we'll work up so many surprises, you'll never see half if you have 40 eyeses. And now, again Sneelock. Brave Sneelock is back, risking life on my patented life-risking track. While the speedsters I call my colliding collusions race round in swift cars called abrasion contusions, and Sneelock just lies there, not one bit excited. I know he won't mind. He'll be simply delighted. And here, in a contest of brute strength and muscle, Kid Sneelock, my champ of all champs, will now tussle and wrestle a beast called the Grizzly Ghastly, and slap him around. Then he'll slam him down fastly and pin both his shoulders right tight flat to the mat. Kid Sneelock will love it. I'm sure about that. And while that goes on there, look at this go on here. Have you heard of my herd of through horn jumping deer? Every deer jumps through horns of another pell-mell, while his horns are jumped through at the same time as well, by a deer whose horns also are being jumped through, by another who's having his horns jumped through too, which I'm sure Trainer Sneelock can train them to do. And while the whole tent will ring with hoorays and wild shouts, when I wheel in my whales and they turn on their spouts, first my whale number one, with an aim that aims true, spouts a spout that spouts Sneelock to whale number two. And then whale number two spouts his spout like a gun, and that spout spouts old Sneelock right back to whale one. And then forwards and backwards on spout after spout, my great spout rider Sneelock gets spouted about, just as long as the water they're spouting holds out. Then, my tournament nights, noble apes without fears, Sir Hector, Sir Vector, Sir Bops, and Sir Beers, Sir Hawkins, Sir Dawkins, Sir Jocks, and Sir Jeers, clatter into the tent while everyone cheers. They stage a roustabout joust with their boxing gloves spears. Always wanted one of those. And while all this wild ruckusing goes on below, at the top of the tent, look, it's a star of my show. Great daredevil Sneelock, the world's bravest type. He comes pulled through the air by 3 Subarian snipe on a dingus contraption attached to his pipe. And while people are below are all turning chalk white, all biting their fingernails off in their fright, great Sneelock soars up to a terrible height. Then he shakes himself loose. He starts down in a dive, such as no man on earth could come out of alive. But he smiles as he falls, and no fear does he feel. His nerves are like iron, his muscles like steel. And he plunges down, down, with his hair still combed neat. 4,692 feet. Then he'll land in a fishbowl. He'll manage just fine. Don't ask how he'll manage. That's his job, not mine. Why, he'll be a hero. Of course he won't mind when he finds that he has a big circus behind. Look at Sneelock's eye. Oh, that brought me back. Go ahead. I dare you to try to read this because there's a lot of tongue twisters in there. You can tell I've heard it before and read it before. One of my favorites. Thanks, Dad. If I ran the circus.